Hi, everyone. I think we're here. I think we're live. Hi, I just want to introduce myself very quickly. My name is François-Pierre. I am a scenic and lighting designer. I also teach at East LA College. I'll be moderating this panel, and we have wonderful guests today going to talk about their career in technical theater and design. First, I want to introduce everybody very quickly, and I'll let everybody then talk about their own path and their own career and who they are. So we have Eric. Hi, Eric. We have Kristen, and we have LT. Okay, so I'm gonna start from my audio on my screen. So I'm gonna start with Eric. Hi, Eric. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Hi, good morning, everyone. Eric Babb, they, them, theirs. I am the assistant prop director here at Center Theater Group. I'm excited to be here.
Kristen.
Hi, everyone. My name is Kristen Matsumoto. Pronouns are she, hers, and I am the production manager for Center Theater Group.
And I'm going to just go next because I'm so I'm LT, I use she, her, hers pronouns, and I'm the technical director at American Repertory Theater that's in Cambridge, Massachusetts.
Wow, fantastic. So I wanted to see if there was anybody. Yeah, we had a question here. Wanted to ask if anybody had ever worked in production, in film or in theater behind the scenes. So you can reply in the chat and we can address it. Also, I wanted to ask everybody, how did you transition from being a student to working in your professional field? How was your journey? Was it directly from, you do theater in high school, went to college and then started working, or did you have a different path? Who would like to go first? LT?
I go, yeah. So I was doing theater and music in high school as a trumpet player. And I thought I was going to be a marching band director. That was like my goal in life. All the schools I applied to, except the one that I went to, I applied for music. And then it was decision time, and the person that I interviewed at, because I went to Rutgers for undergrad, and I actually interviewed to be a stage manager, and the person that I interviewed with told me that I would be a better TD, and I didn't really know what either was, and I'm 17, like, sure, I'm going to school, like, great, I'll be a TD. So that's how I started in undergrad. So I went to undergrad for theater. Because I'm from New Jersey and Rutgers is the state school of New Jersey. One of the things that like helped make that choice was that it was state school prices, and all that. I was the only state school I'd applied to as well. So that was definitely a driving factor to have me make that decision as well. And then I graduated undergrad and then took 3 years of just working at different regional theaters, and different summer stock gigs and whatnot, but TDing and ATDing and doing carpentry work and all of that kind of stuff for about 3 years. And then I went to grad school at Yale School of Drama in Connecticut and got my MFA. And I graduated in 2019, and then I've been TDing or associate TDing since then.
That's super interesting. So you worked for 3 years, then got your MFA as a TD.
Yeah.
So why did you choose to do an MFA?
When I was essentially at a place in my journey where I wanted to leave where I was, but all the job postings I was seeing, I felt like I wasn't qualified for, which in hindsight, I probably was. There's, the whole imposter syndrome, there's the whole, I probably was. And I just decided upon myself that I wasn't when I was seeing them. And I was like, well, this isn't going to work. I can't just not feel like I'm ready for the rest of my life. So that was when I decided to go to grad school and then go back into it.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I suffered from imposter syndrome really badly all my life until recently, because I started in business school and it was horrible. I couldn't do it. I was 17, and then I dropped everything and decided to go in the arts and go in theater. And I was behind everybody, but I was able to fake it pretty well until it became true. Eric, would you like to talk about your journey?
Sure. I did theater in high school. I did performing, and then I also transitioned into doing technical theater. I did a lot of lighting and stage management, and I actually was anticipating going to culinary school. So I was all set. I wanted to be a pastry chef, and I graduated, and it came time to sign up for courses, and all the co-requisite courses I had to take at the same time as the cooking classes were full. So I thought, well, I don't want to stop going to school because I know if I stop, I'm probably not going to want to go back. So I decided to take a few theater classes at LA City College. And through that program, I found out that they had a 2-year theater academy program. And I had already been taking a few classes that first semester. And I decided to enroll and haven't revisited culinary school since. But in the process of going to school there, I started making a lot of connections and working around town, and it led to my interning at Center Theater Group. And I just started working, and I did have intentions to maybe go back and pursue a 4-year degree, but I just ended up working so much. I just decided to keep working.
And so you changed your mind, obviously, in the beginning. How did you feel about that? What was your internal, emotional, intellectual process? Was it hard?
I think once I started doing more theater, that felt right. So it really, it felt like that was the place where I wanted to be and needed to be at the time. And then, like I said, it just led to more work, and it just kind of it felt like it was the right place for me to be. And I feel lucky for the opportunities that I've had.
That's good. Kristen.
Hi. So, yeah, I did theater a little bit in high school. I went to a public high school here in Los Angeles called Hamilton. They have a performing arts academy as well as a humanities magnet. So I actually was in the humanities magnet, but was fortunate enough to take a couple crossover classes like drama and things in the performing arts academy. But I went to college kind of like didn't really think about performing arts a whole lot. I went to college at UC Berkeley and majored in environmental science, policy, and management, and got a minor in music. But once I graduated, I kind of realized I liked doing my extracurriculars a lot more. So I was really involved in my student theater group. I'm really involved in this group called UC Choral Ensembles in college, and doing a lot of theater and arts administrative things through those groups. So I was like, I could have a job in like this fancy major that I have, but I don't know if that's going to like give me satisfaction and if I'm really going to enjoy it, because I spent so much more time and so much more energy in like these other groups, and I just found it so much more fulfilling to myself. So I decided to, even though my degree is in like the environmental science, I decided to make that pivot once I graduated college, like pretty immediately. Unfortunately, when I graduated undergrad, that was in like 2009. So that was back at the other economic crash that we were going through. So I started actually just looking for internships sort of like anywhere in the country that I could find one. Luckily, I landed actually at Seattle Repertory Theater. They have a fantastic 1-year internship program there, where they provide a lot of support education wise, and they also offer financial support for that as well. So I landed there, and then just kind of started trying to research and figure out what I could do to like get into a theater career. From there, I moved to the East Coast. I did a summer stock, and then I started like freelancing around the Boston area. I actually landed at American Repertory Theater as well for a decent amount of time. And then I got into the Yale School of Drama. So I did my MFA at Yale in the Technical Design and Production Department. And I graduated in 2016. Then I landed basically at CTG, and I've been here ever since.
That's a great path. So as well, you had a different career path. Did you find that your work before, or your studies before theater was wasted? Was it not a natural progression, but was it useful in what you were doing?
Yeah, there's different parts that are useful. It's kind of interesting. Some of the policies and politics and sort of like understanding that kind of world and language is interesting. It does translate a little bit sometimes. Like, I mean, we deal with a lot of union agreements, and we deal with a lot of like written word things, like at least in my position I do. So some of that literacy that I gained from my undergrad studies actually did translate into the theater world.
Because I'm asking because I have students that I teach as well that change major all the time. And even they start in theater and they go somewhere else, and I always come back and say, you know what, even though I switched, it was okay because I learned so much. It was part of my progression. So I wanted people to feel that if they don't make the right choice right away for themselves, it's okay. Nobody is going, yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like, theater is such a broad field, honestly, that there are bits and pieces of so many other fields that are integrated into this. I mean, there's like art history, there's different ethnic studies courses, there's like physics and math and electrical engineering, like those things like vary, like from the humanities all the way up to like the sciences and maths. Like they can all sort of like find a home and get integrated into what we do in theater. So it's actually I find the field really unique because of that.
Very broad. So I had Emily was mentioning she's a high school senior and she's pursuing an acting career, but she's interested in prop making and set making, which is an interesting. It'll be very interesting. Is there work for an actor that wants to also work backstage? How does that balance work?
I think there is. I didn't start out directly doing props. I did a lot of stage management. I would say a tidbit of advice would be to, at least starting out, not pigeonhole yourself into one thing. Maybe getting kind of being able to wear a couple different hats. So like I said, starting out, I did a lot of stage management and then assistant stage managing. And then I was really attracted to props because of the crossover and work involved with stage management and dealing with the props. And I just navigated toward that. And that's how I transitioned. But I think that there is a place for people who do a few different things in theater.
LT, you wanted to say something?
Yeah, and I will admit I don't know a lot about how like the LA scene works per se, but most places have overhire lists of some kind. So even if like, and those are calls that like you might get an email about a call, and you never have to say yes to every email you get, but like it keeps you in that mix, like Eric's saying, of you can be in a show that you're acting in 1 month and then know that you have a month between your 2 shows that you're acting in, and you're trying to just fill it with other types of calls. And that could be carpentry or prop making, or just loading in sets. Like you might not actually get to build the flat, but you might get to be a part of the team that installs it all on stage, so you can see it from that perspective. There's a lot of avenues in that way of just getting to put your hands on the thing. And even like in like, you know, on load-in crews, sometimes there's so many people there that you might not know every little thing about how to load in a piece of scenery, but you might be on a team with 4 other people and one of the persons do, and they're going to help you show, and you're going to hold the flat while they do the thing. Like there's you can have a lot of different skill levels in that way too. Like you don't have to be an expert to be on an overhire call list. They'll just have a note about what your skills are and what your skills are. And then that'll just be how they fill that call, knowing where you can kind of join into the mix.
Yeah, and I found also when I first started in LA after my MFA, I was working with the Actors Gang Theater, and it's a company base, and the actors don't have to pay dues, but they have to give hours to be able to be part of the company. So they had to hang lights, install sets, do props, and I think those skills are very useful. And in Los Angeles, there is a lot of people that work in different industries. They'll work in a restaurant industry or the service industry, and they'll be acting. But it's also nice to be able to work in theater, backstage, and be acting. So you keep within your world, within your field as well. We also have Daniela, who's in 9th grade. Yes, and she did 3 years in middle school and plan to continue through with high school, which is great. I never had that opportunity myself. Any of you had able to start theater early in school? How was it for you, Kristen? Did it help you?
Yeah, it was interesting. I started on the acting side. So I did drama and acting back in middle school. My middle school offered it as an elective. So there was a couple years in a row that I took that, and we put on like a whole school performance with it. And then high school, again, like I was able to translate, even though I wasn't in the performing magnet, I still was able to take classes there. So I carried out actually acting, and then I also played piano sort of like through my middle school and high school careers. And then when I entered college, the way that I actually first got involved with the theater extracurricular that I did was through acting, but then it's actually answers a little bit of the question before, like through that extracurricular I did acting, but then they also needed backstage help, and they needed the set building, and they needed people to run and focus lights. And then I started getting really involved in a lot of that backstage stuff. And I'm like, I really like this. So then that's how specifically that pathway ended up for me.
Nice. So I think I'm going to dive in the next question that I had, because a lot of people here watching us are probably debating what to choose, what to do, and how to get in. How did you choose to do maybe theater, or to change from high school to college? What was your process? I know for Kristen, it was in direct. Eric, you went to culinary school as well, then you change again. Like what happens in the mind of somebody who ends up doing theater, and what are the hurdles and the excitement?
I know one of the things for me is that I knew very early in life I didn't like doing one thing all the time. Like being at like a retail, like any like jobs where like it's the same type of job every day, just was not how my brain was ever going to function. It's one of the reasons why I thank God I didn't go into stage management, because like I can't do the same show every day. Like that would not have been my career path. Like if I had started at stage management, I know I would have swapped, type thing. And in technical direction, you get to work on so many different things, both at the same time and over the course of time, which is also different depending on what type of theater you're doing. Like there's, in the commercial world, you might work on something for an entire year, but I also chose specifically that I like doing regional theater because I get to sit with the thing for maybe 4 months. It's like 6 months if like we're really getting excited. But I know that like in 6 months from then, I'm going to be doing a whole different show with a whole different cast, a completely different script. It might be a musical, it might be a play, there might be a lift, there might be flats, there might be a platform, but like all like that, it gets to be different every day. And that was very important to me, because I'm not a person that would enjoy not getting to do a different thing every day without it feeling like you have to like change jobs all the time. Like I get to do all these different things while I have the same job. Right. If that makes any sense. Like I don't have to like hop around different jobs to get that experience.
It's not, you don't have a routine necessarily, a 9-to-5 routine, and you get to see different projects that are coming in. But also you said something interesting, because you mentioned you work in regional theater, and I'm not sure everybody knows what a regional theater is, what a Broadway, we all have a sense of what Broadway is. So what is a regional theater, LT?
Ooh, I'm probably going to butcher this description. But I guess one of the knowns is that it's specific to like there's like regional theaters in locations, I guess. So like I'm a regional theater in the Boston area, and where usually I guess we can be presenting or producing. I don't know if I can give you a good description. Someone else might be better at describing what that actually means.
Let me give this a shot. So I also might butcher it, so forgive me too. But I think the biggest thing is that, like, you know, we have different sort of like categories and levels that we call theater. There's like sort of like maybe community-based theater, or even like some of the smaller 99-seat houses. Those tend to be a little bit, honestly, just like less paying, or even the community-based theaters, they're a lot more volunteer-based. Regional theater is definitely more of a larger scale professional theater. And like LT said, they are, the way that they are historically founded was by region. So like LA has a couple regional theaters, like Seattle has a few regional theaters, like the Midwest has a few regional theaters. And then those were sort of like the big sort of benchmark ones. And then there's been other theaters that have sort of like developed and like risen and fallen, like kind of surrounding those areas. I think one of the hallmarks is that they are a not-for-profit. So unlike Broadway theaters, Broadway, there's like a whole commercial model associated with them. A lot of the regional theater model is a like not-for-profit model. That doesn't mean that you don't get paid anything. It just is how the company itself functions and how they report for like taxes, and like how much fundraising that they need to do. And like LT said too, like these theaters can do like presenting, which means like maybe they have a theater, like at Center Theater Group, we have one specific theater that we use to house like touring shows. So shows that would like tour across the country, like Dear Evan Hansen or Come From Away, would come, and sort of like that would be a tour stop. And then there's also producing houses, which are tend to be theaters that like would literally, your company would produce a show from the ground up. So starting like with the basic rehearsal process, you like build all the sets and props and everything from scratch. You have a whole new design team that like comes in and brings in new designs. And those are sort of like the two models within a regional theater. I totally went off on a tangent, but I hope that sort of answers the question.
I think it does. I think it's really interesting because as students start working in the get out there, regional theaters, you can get overhire your job at a regional theater, but you can also have full-time jobs, right? So working backstage is a full-time job, it's a career. And in small theaters, 99-seat theater, which is what we call the equity waiver theater, there's a few staff members, but a lot of the people are overhired. So you can have, because I'm going back to Sophia here, that she says she wants to be an actress, but she also wants to pursue a career in fashion design, maybe costume design. And it's possible when we work over hire like this, when we do multiple jobs, to maybe have one position in a theater, but then start working in other theaters and being hired for other things on a smaller scale, or juggle both. There's people that do have multiple careers. Great. Let me just, oh yes, another question. So when you transition from school to the workplace, what were the first fears or hurdles or things that were difficult to start with? What can we expect? Maybe things that could be a little daunting, even if they were not real fears. I mean, or that we didn't was real, but what are the things that people may be scared of that we want to maybe dismantle here and talk about? I know for me, I'm just gonna start, because for me personally, when I started, well, first of all, like I said, I was in business school, and then I decided to do arts, and the only models that I had back home of people doing arts were people that were struggling. It was difficult, and my parents were not happy with my decision and my choices, and they thought I wouldn't have a career. And as soon as I started getting involved in theater, I saw that people had work, like it was able to find that there were jobs. And the big fear was that it was, I think, romanticized sometimes in film or in literature, that artists don't have, they can't make money, or there's all these actual practical issues, which is not quite true in the world that we actually live in. And there's a lot of opportunities for us, the unions that we can join. And as I was progressing and working towards my goal, I met my professors and mentors, and they helped me push through that gate, and then find that there was like people that I could meet. And I had to also, but the scary part is I had to get out there and present myself to people and network, which I had never done before. I'm still not great at it, but I had to, self-promote. It was very shy. So, and as any of you experienced that?
Yeah, I can relate to that a bit. Like, one of my fears was finding work consistently. Like, you do get a gig here, you get a gig there. Like, before finding a full-time position, you did have to string along some doing freelance work. So like I mentioned earlier, for me, I had to diversify my kind of jobs I was taking for a bit. So and it also sort of did afford me the time to really hone in and reaffirm that I did really enjoy props. And through doing these other types of, like, still theater work, but like I said, I did a lot of stage managing and ASMing. But it also helped to reaffirm what I really did want to go after and pursue. And yeah.
Yeah, I can add a little bit too. Like I said, when I graduated college, like that was during the economic collapse. So I was like looking for a career where nobody was hiring anything. So like definitely can relate to the financial and economic worries about like trying to pursue an arts career. I will say that I mean, you know, since I was looking for jobs back then, the industry has dramatically shifted. There are a lot more opportunities and definitely a lot more paid opportunities out there, even if they're learning, even if they are internships. So I would definitely say that you can try and focus on getting that stuff too. And something that I wanted to lift up from what Eric said before is like, especially if you're not 100% sure that like I absolutely like want to go do this thing and this is my absolute dream, like not to pigeonhole yourself within one thing. I mean, when I was living in Seattle after my internship for a little bit, I had the opportunity to do like a lot of different things in the field. So I did the stage management. I did a little bit of acting. I did carpentry. I took calls. And definitely like, I mean, the hustle was definitely a real thing that I did at the time. But it also allowed me to learn and branch out into things. I also started taking things in like events management. I worked at a handful of museums. So there are also like related or ancillary fields that are pretty close to theater and are still definitely arts related that will still give you the skill sets that you would want later on in your career in theater as well. And then definitely the networking thing. Networking in theater, like even across the country, we are such a small community. So if you make friends and get a good reputation, like with one company or with one group of people, they're bound to know this other group of people who knows another group of people. So the networking is very real, and it's a very supportive community all in all. So once you kind of start to get to know people, we all want to be able to uplift the next generation and want people to have careers in this industry. So we're all very, I mean, like even doing something like this and having these panels, like we're all very supportive of trying to foster the next generation.
Yeah, and I'd say one thing to add to that is that I think there's a little bit to like the amount of panels and stuff you can go to now in 2022 versus like one of my fears, I guess, in like the 2009, 2013 range was like, you never really got to like see people talk about their journey as much. Like until you like met the person at some place to ask them the question, like in that meanwhile place that's like right now that's folks on this call are in, like trying to find people that like want to talk about their struggles in a public place. like for me, I would like read a book and be like, man, how did this person that wrote this book got like they just wrote it? Did they struggle to get, like you just like never got to like see the transparency of like how did that person that now their career has ended in book writing get to that place? And there was just I had a whole bunch of anxiety around like if I'm not great at it yet, when does that happen? Like not understanding like when is that going to happen? How does that affect the rest of everything else going on and whatnot? But I think that's something that's great about panels like this that are starting to happen more and more now that folks can like kind of break down and see that like we all have the four of us all have paths, right? Like we all got here somewhere. It wasn't just like, and then we were good. Like that's not what happened. But back in 2013, like finding people that would say that out loud wasn't easy. So that I would be sitting there being like, did all these people just become good? Like how'd they get there? Type thing.
Right. Practice, doing it over and over and failing so many times. I personally, I fail a lot. Yeah. So, and to get where I am. And actually, I had a question because I feel like we've been talking a lot about how to get to things, but I don't know because I can't see anybody in the chat or in who was there, who's watching us. But can we maybe should talk about what we do and what it means? Because I don't know if everybody knows what a production manager is, what a TD is, what a prop master is, or a scenic lighting designer. I feel like a lot of people know about actors, which is great because it's the forefront of what we see. But let's talk about what we do a little bit. Eric, want to go first?
Sure. So, like I mentioned, I'm the assistant prop director here at CTG. So the way that our department model is set up is there's a singular prop director, and then there is an associate prop director, and then an assistant prop director like myself. And the two, the associate and the assistant, we alternate taking lead roles on productions. So our terminology is prop lead, but we are the prop masters for the productions for all three of our theaters. So in the prop department, we service the Mark Taper Forum, the Kirk Douglas Theater, and productions that we do produce at the Amundsen. So I am the prop lead on the production. So I interface with our prop coordinator, who often does a lot of artisan work and sourcing of the items. And we also have a prop carpenter in our department as well, who facilitates building any custom pieces we need for the production. So my position as the prop lead on the production is to make sure that all the props are executed for the show.
LT?
Yeah, so as a TD, it's very, I guess I would say for everybody on the call, like being a TD really depends on where you're at as well. Like the job description of a TD at some places could involve that you're also in charge of lighting, video, and sound. Some places you're just involved with scenery. So for me, I'm mostly just involved in scenery. So I have 2 associate technical directors, and then a group of carpenters, and a purchaser, which I'm also going to talk about because it's one of the best jobs I think in the world. And I just want everybody to know that like you can be in theater and do that job, and that's a thing. But as a TD, I get the designs from a set designer, and then essentially the like crux of the job is figuring out what resources we have to achieve the design. And then if we don't have the resources to achieve the design, being in conversation with the designer to get the design into our resources. And those resources are material, time, and labor. So do we have enough money to buy the things, to make the thing? Do we have enough people? Do we have enough people to make the thing? And then do we have enough linear time to make the thing? And managing all of those aspects is one half of the job. And then the other half of the job is truly personnel management, because I am in charge of all those people and how they come in every day and what time do they come in every day and make sure they get their breaks, and do we have lunch at the right time, and are we taking vacation? Like all of like things that don't even involve building scenery are also part of the job. And to highlight, which I guess to say that as a TD, you can lean into both of those things. Like you can be a TD that's really good at personnel management, and maybe you're not great at drafting things, but you have an associate that's great at drafting things. Like, and there's just like a lot of ways to like build a team that balances each other's skills, and that you don't necessarily have to be great at all of the different tenets of being a technical director. You have to be great at some of them and have the right team around you that are also great at the other ones, so that your team is good as a collective. And the purchaser job, just to say, so there's someone on my team that is just in charge of finding material, buying material, research and development for different ideas, and stocking inventory, and running our Excel sheet. And that's like what that job is, you know? And you would just think like he doesn't have to be good at carpentry, he doesn't have to be good at drafting, but he's in the shop every day doing the thing. And there's so many different types of jobs out there that are in theater that are just wild, that you might not even come across sometimes. You're like, wait, I can get paid to do what? That's a job? that's what you get to do every day when you come in. You get to find where's the cheapest 2x4 this week. Like that's like what you get to like spend time on. But it's true, you can.
That's amazing. There's so many jobs in theater. And I just want to say, by the way, because I'm a designer, people talking about designers, so I come up with the visual aesthetic of the productions. The people in this room right now are some of my favorite, most important people in what I do. So I appreciate all of you on a daily basis, because without all of you, my work would mean nothing. Kristen, you want to take up on management?
Yeah, sure. So it's sort of like LT's description of a technical director. The term and the role of a production manager can kind of change between different theaters and size and scope of theaters. So I've known like production managers who are like production managers / technical directors. So it's like they would have a mix of my job and LT's job. So it varies from place to place, but I can speak on for Center Theater Group, because we are such a large organization. I really focus on solely doing a lot of the administrative work that production management oversees. So how I like to describe production management for people that don't know backstage or like a lot of the roles in theater is that I oversee everything that happens on stage that is not the actors. So all of those technical elements, lighting, sound, sets, costumes, props, like literally everything that is not like the actual people of actors, like I am responsible for the large oversight of. Each of those departments tend to have like department heads. So on this call, like Eric is the prop lead on a show. LT is going to be the technical director. So those people would report to me, having managed like their departments, and then report to me like their budgets, or if there's a large interdepartmental problem solving and communication that needs to go on, they would also filter it through production management to try and facilitate conversations. So a lot of it, it's a favorite phrase that we used to use in grad school is like bringing order to the chaos. So that's a big thing that production management does. It's combining a lot of different pieces across the spectrum that we do in making a theatrical production and trying to mesh it all together. Doing that like in so that you're like mitigating concerns in terms of like every single department and between designers, and also trying to stay on a budget. So that's the other large component of our job is to really manage the budget on a show by show basis. So that is also like between labor and also the material budget, and all the departments would filter through us to try and manage that. I also oversee the stage crew at our theater spaces. So every one of our spaces at Center Theater Group, each one of those theaters actually also has their own dedicated stage crew. So those are the people that run the shows. So you have a carpenter, props, lighting and sound, and then wardrobe, and as well as hair and makeup. So all those people will run every single show that comes through the theater. So I would be responsible for overseeing that crew as well.
Do you know how many people do you have working under, like how many technical employees on stage and backstage, not including house management, just
Sure, it does vary by a show basis. Those 6 categories that I named are sort of like the supervisory permanent people that are associated with each of the theaters. And then as we get more difficult or shows that have different needs, not necessarily difficult. So if we have a show that has like a lot of props dressings and then automation and there's a follow spot and there's microphones, like every one of those, we start to add crew to those. So it really, honestly, like it varies show by show.
But there's a potential to hire a lot of people.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I just want to remind everybody who's watching that we have just a little over 10 minutes. So if you have any questions, you feel free to type them in and we'll address them directly. Any questions to anybody here or general question. I want to talk just a little bit about design also, because we mentioned that I mentioned that I'm a scenic and lighting and sometimes projection designer. So all the designers are responsible to create the visual, or if it's sound, it's audio, aesthetic of the stage. So we start from nothing. It's an empty canvas. And we have discussion with the director and the other designers and our technical staff, and we create a visual aesthetic to help tell the story on the stage and help the actors tell the story. So that's what we do. And then I personally have communication with the directors, and then sometimes the actors and the other designers. And then I transition back to talking to LTE, Eric and Kristen, and they all tell me, no, we can't do this. You're dreaming too big. Or yes, we can do all of it and it's fantastic. But it's a great job. You know what? I'm gonna throw just a little curveball here to everybody. But I was just wondering if you had a memory or something what are the best moments that you've had in your job? Something when you sat down and said, wow, that's why I'm doing this. That's the reason why I'm here, and I love my job. Or maybe your best show, or something that.
I'll go. I've had a couple moments like that, both being at Center Theater Group. My first was during my internship, and when I saw my first prop on a CTG stage, and it was a really prominent prop in the show. It was a show about time travel, and it was like kind of like that movie Click with Adam Sandler. So there was like this time traveling remote. So I made this little time traveling remote for the show, and so it was like prominently featured in it. And I just remember sitting there and like, I made that, I did that, and just feeling reaffirmed, and that's it, that satisfaction.
Wow, that's yeah. And for how many people every night come see it and see your work?
Right.
That's amazing.
Ooh, that's a tough one for me. I've been fortunate, and like I mean, it's the reason why I stay in the field too, is because I get those moments of like, wow, this is so great, and this is why I'm here, and this is why I'm doing that. Sort of, I think moving away from sort of like maybe some of the technical aspects is honestly coming to student matinees and seeing the next generation of people just like kind of light up and engage and react in theater, and like do and engage with the art that we're putting on stage. That is like super fulfilling to me, and it's really great to see.
LT, should I go? Do you want to go?
No, I lost
You got it.
my mouse
okay.
was down for a moment. I would say that I think trying to think I can like think of one recently, but when a budget process goes really well, budgeting is one of my favorite parts of the process in general, which is, you know, a debated topic. Most people don't love that part of the process, but when you get like that back and forth that you were talking about a little bit of like when you get to work with a designer to get their vision into what resources we have, and that like collaboration of you're not trying to change the vision, like you're trying to get the vision on stage without burning anybody out that has to do that work, and like having those when the conversation is good back and forth the design, like when both sides get the conversation, that it's not that I'm trying to like edit a thing, it's that I'm trying to deliver your vision, but I want to make sure we deliver it without anybody wanting to quit on the other side. Like just like when that back and forth goes well, it's just like it's very nice. Just like having that, building that collaboration and building that just like relationship with that person, because you never know when you're going to work with that designer again. Like it's never, the odds of like you won't at some point in life work with them at least one more time are very low. Like you might not work with them every month by any means, but you're probably never going to work with someone a singular time. And if it goes well that one time, the next time, just like you keep building that relationship. And then you get the buy-in of the whole team when that part goes right. And then like when you have the team buy-in, just like everything else about the process goes well. But it all starts at like, if budgeting does not go well, the odds that the rest of it is going to go great are not high, very much. Like it's not that it's going to be bad. It's just like when budgeting goes well, the rest of it like usually also goes well because you've started that collaboration process early. But yeah.
Yeah, I love that process too. I think it's when it goes well, me too. I'm usually very flexible in what I do, and when people talk to me, and we can have a conversation and make it happen. Because as a designer, it's really nerve-wracking because we have these ideas, and we think they're good, we hope they're good, and then the set starts to be built in the shop, and it's huge in the shop, and it looks a certain way, and then my favorite moments are when it first shows up on the stage before the audience is there during tech, and I get to see when it works well, when you go, okay, yes, this is good. And then we keep working. And then much like Eric and Kristen as well, when the audience is first there and sees the work, because we're so focused on ourselves for such a long time. And then suddenly people come in and give us the energy. And then we remember why we're doing this. This is one of my favorite moments. We have about 5 minutes left, but I wanted to ask if you had any advice for students that are now figuring out what to do and what school to go to? Is it maybe go to a 2-year college, a community college, then maybe a 4-year? Should they do an MFA? Should they start working directly in the field? Or maybe all of people can have different paths, and that's completely okay.
I'll start again. Oh, sorry, Kristen, unless you'd like to. Well, just speaking to my personal experience, like if there is something that you're maybe just a little bit interested in, but not fully wanting to pursue, junior colleges and 2-year college programs are really great to explore that and not break the bank. And you may find that that is really the path that you want to pursue. That worked out for me. You know, I didn't start out in culinary school on the path that I had wanted. So I decided, you know, why don't I just dabble in this a little bit? And community college was a great place for that for me. And my other tidbit of advice, like I mentioned earlier, is just not trying to pigeonhole yourself starting out and trying to dabble in a couple of different little things, and you may discover what you like through that. So that would be my advice to share.
All right, I unmuted myself earlier, so I think I just sitting on this panel and like listening to all of our different career paths, like obviously, like regardless of if you go to a 2-year college, if you go to a 4-year college, if you get an MFA later, there are different pathways to this career, and there's no one set way. It's just how we each individually for our own lives and with the places that we're in, we're able to like get to where we are. So, I mean, there's definitely different educational institutions that'll focus in different areas of theater and in the performing arts. So I don't have a particular recommendation to go that way. I will say I wanted to uplift the networking thing again, just because I do find that very important in theater, and just like the different relationships that you build with your colleagues. Since you're starting out, like you never know where someone is going to end up in the next year or 2 or 10, and to keep up those relationships. I also wanted to sort of uplift something that I said before about the support that a lot of theaters try and offer, especially people that are interested in our field and want to get more involved and want to learn more. When I first started, I also did a lot of cold calling to people. Like I honestly like picked up the phone or like wrote someone an email saying, hey, I'm an intern or I'm a student in such and such place. I'm really interested in this. Do you have a little bit of time to talk to me? Or can you like give me a tour of your theater space? And I found people surprisingly actually more responsive and more encouraging than trying to shut me down. So I would encourage you. I know it's like it's a little nerve-wracking to be able to do that, and I definitely had to like talk myself up and like, okay, I'm definitely going to call this person. But that it did help with the networking, and I did get a lot of really good advice from professionals in the field by doing things like that.
Thank you. LT?
Definitely +1 to the cold email. People love talking about what they do. Let me just tell you that. And if they don't, like, then they just won't reply to the email. Like they're not going to reply and be like, why did you email me? Like that, they're either going to reply and answer your questions or like ask to set up a call or yes, say, let's do the tour, or they're not going to answer. So that's one thing to like help that if anybody's on the fence about sending the email. In undergrad, we had an assignment. We had to email someone, and I was afraid to do it. And I emailed Susan Hilferty, who is the costume designer on Wicked, and she responded like the next day. I was like, "Can't wait to chat." I'm like, "Whoa!" Like it was just like so, like it's like that. Like people want it. People love talking about what they do. And I think the only thing to add, because y'all have already said great things, is I think a piece of advice would be like, as you're on your journey, to always remember that everybody's priorities are different and everybody's on their own journey. So like, even when you go to undergrad or when you go to grad school, or if you choose to do neither of those things, like while you're working with people in different companies and doing the thing, that everybody is not trying to be the same type of set designer. Everybody's not trying to be the same type of production manager or the same type of CD. Like everybody's trying to do their version of that job, and that's okay. And you can be trying to do your version of that job, and you don't need to be aspiring to do someone else's version of the job. And just because there are so many paths, and just while you're on that path, knowing that everybody's on their own journey, trying to do their own thing, and that you don't have to like, what's the word? Like assimilate to someone else's journey, like be on your path.
That's actually a really good point. I had a set designer that I knew from back home, and he didn't go to, he finished high school and that was it. And he became a set designer, and he learned everything, reading books. That was just his way. So that was very impressive to me. I'm a person, I need something to help me move through and forward. So, okay, well, I think we're running out of time, if I'm correct. I just wanted to thank everybody who is here, Eric, Kristen, LT, and everybody who's watching. Yes, thank you to Center Theater Group for hosting this panel. And I hope everybody at home, you can take advantage of all the resources that Center Theater Group is offering. There's just two posts, the last two posts in the chat about openings at Center Theater Groups. Also, don't hesitate to call theaters, like everybody's saying. They may want to take you as an intern. They may have a job for you. Just get information out there. Don't be afraid to network. And thank you, everyone. We hope to see you soon, and don't hesitate to reach out to any of us.
Thank you for a wonderful moderation. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Thank you.
Thank
you
you
all.
Bye-bye.